Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gonzalez.
It is Thursday, October 17th. Delighted to share another short-term volunteer story with you. In studio to help us with that, Ann Gonzalez, fellow DCE and manager, short-term mission training and engagement for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. I got it right this time. I made sure I had it in the notes.
You did. Thanks for having me back.
I should have it memorized by now.
We do talk quite a bit.
You brought along some friends. Well, they're on the phone, but
Yes.
You brought along some friends who have served as short-term volunteers. Give us a little background on our guests that are joining us today.
Yeah, so Lisa and Jeb Schreiber recently served in Ethiopia as a part of the team providing childcare and programming to the missionary kids during their fall conference. It was actually a total God thing where they connected with Krista Young at the National Youth Gathering and quick applied, and 2 months later, we're on a plane to Ethiopia.
Wow.
That's fast.
It is.
Fast.
Quite the turnaround.
Well, Jeb and Lisa, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for being our guests on the Coffee Hour today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
So,
And I would just add that we took 3 of our kids on that plane and took a ride to Ethiopia with them, too. So it was an adventure for our whole family.
so for the
cool.
family, the Schreiber family 5 went to Ethiopia this summer. That's outstanding.
There's actually a Schreiber family 7, but the youngest 2 stayed home.
So had you been thinking about serving as short-term volunteers prior to this?
So no, it was, as Ann said, a really quick turnaround event. One of our daughters is actually adopted from Ethiopia, and we knew Krista Young because our church sponsors her, and she knew some of our backstory. And at the youth gathering, we went to the seminar that she was doing, and she was just talking through what she was going to talk through about how you can serve as short-term missionaries and what it looks like to be a missionary and how you can be a missionary right where you are. But she was saying an example of a way to serve is childcare, and they had just had a team cancel on them, and she literally pointed to me in the audience at this conference at the youth gathering and said, and it's at Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia. And it really just felt like God was speaking in that moment to everyone, to Jed, to myself, to Krista, to Joel, her husband, who was also there. And it got pulled together in a whirlwind, but we really felt like God was saying in that moment, this is what you're supposed to do. So do it.
Absolutely. What were those conversations leading up to when you left, thinking about whether this was something you wanted to do and bring your kids along with you as well?
Yeah, so it started with a lot of excitement. This is something that we were looking for an opportunity to take our family to Ethiopia. And then quickly reality set in with all the logistics of getting our family out of country and getting passports and visas and all of that and funding and everything. So it was a little bit of a roller coaster ride leading up, but it turned out to be such a great experience for our family.
Well, tell us what you got to do while you were in Ethiopia serving on that team.
So the big part of it was the child care for the missionary families, which was really exciting and took a lot of energy. They are an energetic group of children. What we tried to do, though, is we had them for really only 3 days, and there was a morning session and an afternoon session for 2 of those 3 days. One day was just the morning session. And so we took the morning time and we tried to create a VBS, sort of shortened VBS for the kids. And so we had songs. Jeb leads worship at our church, and so he brought his guitar, and we did some praise songs. Then we did some video songs, sort of music video songs, similar to what we do in our home church. We did some crafts with the kids, and we did games, and then we had Bible story time. So we tried to give them what we do at our home church, but in a shortened amount of time and with a lot of unknowns heading into it. We were prepared for everything because we didn't know what to expect.
For instance, we were like, there's electricity most of the time.
Maybe.
Yes. Just different than when you're prepping for your own church.
Yeah, I would just add we started with planning for 30 kids, but depending on the event, some of the crafts, we inherited some extra kids that happened to be at the resort with their families that just joined right in. So we were able to serve the missionary kids and other random children that happened to be walking by.
That is so cool, though. Tell us about the kids that you were able to lead through these things. Tell us a little bit about the missionary kids.
So there's some great families. There's most families have several children at least. So there's one family that had 8 kids in the program. So maybe not as many families represented as you would normally have for a group of 30 kids. So there were a lot of siblings within the group. And so looking at it from a family perspective, there's some really, really great families serving overseas, and they're raising some phenomenal children. We specifically hung out really with the 12 and under group. There were a couple of leaders who went with us who were stronger with the teenagers, and so they took the teenagers and got to have a little bit more one-on-one time and mentoring time with them. But we had the younger kids and enjoyed their energy, and for them, it's like a big family reunion, which is really cool to guide them through that and make sure that they're having fun in a healthy way and in a safe way. But they have so much excitement about coming back together with people that have gone through similar life experiences as they have and might now be living in a different country, but they come together every couple of months, or I guess twice a year, and they get to have this time together playing like cousins would play.
Yeah, and you could tell they just really enjoyed that time together because their normal life is a little bit in isolation. They're surrounded by people that speak a different language in a different country and culture. And so the energy Lisa described was pretty high, that they were excited to be together with their peers. And we were just happy to try to corral that energy into giving them some organized activities to work on and to give them better chances to connect to each other and to connect to God's Word through our Bible studies and BBS activities.
What did you learn, or what did your children learn while you were serving in Ethiopia?
So I would just start by saying we learned that we take a lot of things for granted in the country we live in that there are parts of the world that don't have all the things that we are accustomed to. And it was a very broadening experience for our family. It gave us a broader view of the world, and not everyone has the same things available to them. And just spending time in country, we're able to see that, and that was mostly even beyond just the conference and the service that we were providing. Just the observation of experiencing another culture, that was very eye-opening for the family.
Yeah,
I think also I'd just say that I learned a lot about what it means to really be a missionary. And I think that there's just, even if we try to be educated in the United States, we're still going to have some misconceptions about what it really looks like until you go and sit and have dinner with a family serving as a missionary and just hear their stories, and you can relate to them in a better way, in a different way. I think here we just think, oh, there's someone over there, somewhere over on the other side of the world who's doing this. But now we've had that conversation with them, and we've talked with them, and we see their children, and we see that they are just like us. And also the ways that the Lutheran Church is serving, especially in East Africa, are really, I feel like they're really empowering, and they're really incredible. That you can see how God is using 1 or 2 willing volunteers to go and make a tremendous number of disciples for him. And it's really cool to see the impact they're having on the culture that they live in.
Yeah. Can you share some stories of the people or from the people that you were able to meet and serve with?
So I'm particularly connected with Johannes Sinet. The Sinet family is serving in Addis Ababa, and Eric Sinet is a teacher at the seminary. So it's a seminary down right in the city that we were serving in, so they didn't have too far to travel. And we actually got to go to their home on our last day of being there. They had just offered that if we were tired and wanted to come and just hang out, and that time of just being in their home with them was one of the most special parts of the trip. It was just great. It was great. I have made a friend in Ethiopia, and I just enjoyed it so much. It was great hearing her story. So not to tell her story, but they are from Montana, and they took this call several years ago to go overseas, and they have 4 children. They have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old daughter, and then a 6-year-old son and a 1-year-old son. And we have kids that kind of fall at similar ages, so it was good for our children to be with their children, and then also I could really relate to their kids because I'm super aware of what it's like to be an 11-year-old girl right now because we're raising an 11-year-old daughter. And just talking through the stuff that they have struggled with, the things that are joys to them. I mean, Johanna has made this incredible effort to learn the Amharic language, which is incredibly difficult, but then to see how that allows her to be so approachable and able to engage people who live there and be able to have conversations and share life with them was really, really inspiring. Jeb, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I just add maybe to the people there. We got to connect with the missionaries and talk a little bit more about their mission. And some of the stories they told us about the pastors that attend the seminary there in Addis Ababa were pretty inspiring. There's stories of pastors that go into pretty highly persecuted areas, and they're trying to give that message of love in a way that can connect with people even amidst persecution, and in areas where Ethiopia generally has a high Christian population, but there are some areas that they don't have a high population of Christians, and the mission they have in those areas was pretty inspiring. Some of the risks that people in that country are willing to take in order to spread God's word.
In just a moment, Anne's going to share with us about some of the upcoming opportunities for people who might consider some of these opportunities, might be thinking about serving on a short-term mission. Any words of advice, any words of wisdom to share with our listeners who might be considering serving as short-term volunteers?
I would say you will never regret it. It might feel like a financial stretch. It might feel like you're in over your head, but God has it. I mean, God has ordained this for our family, and I have said to people coming back, it's very challenging to describe this trip in 30 seconds. And they say, oh, how was your trip? And you're like, oh, it was good. But people say that when they go to the beach, right? Oh, it was good. And I'm like, but this is not that trip. This trip changed. I think it has changed our lives. I mean, we're only a couple of weeks later, so I don't know if it'll change. Hopefully it will have changed our lives. It's one thing to see something and to read about it or see it on the news. It is entirely different to stand on a street somewhere and look around and be like, oh, that wasn't just a segment of the population. That was the entire population they showed. It has changed, I think, everything about how we perceive our culture, and been a really good gift to us. So I would encourage all to do it.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, don't underestimate the value of gaining a broader perspective. So there are many times that you kind of get stuck in a rut and you feel like you can't really experience some of these things, but if you're willing to step out and take a risk, there's a whole big world out there that God's made, and seeking that broader perspective and seeing other parts of that creation, you'll never regret that. And it's an experience that I wish on anyone that seeks it out.
And what are the broad parts of the world that the Lord is giving opportunities to serve in the coming months, years ahead?
Well, we have many opportunities to serve, but particularly for this type of service, working with missionary kids, there's a team going to Kenya in March to also work with the East Africa children, and one for the Dominican Republic in August. And you can find all the info and how to apply at servenow.lcms.org.
Servenow.lcms.org is the place to find more information on serving as a short-term volunteer with Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Thank you so much, Jeb and Lisa, for being our guests on the Coffee Hour today and sharing your story of being volunteers for the East Africa Children's Program.
You're welcome. So much. Thank you for having me.
And as always, Anne, thanks for coming in to share these wonderful stories and also opportunities for us to serve on short-term missions.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having us.
I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.